welcome to Digital Shift, also known as Corporate Evolution Tales. Join us as we dive into the dynamic world of digital transformation. From illuminating case studies to captivating narratives, we uncover the stories behind companies' journeys toward digital excellence. Whether you are a seasoned corporate leader or an aspiring innovator, our podcast explores the shifts, challenges of modern business evolution. Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Digital Shift, aka Corporate Evolution Tales. And today with us is Stephen. Thank you, Stephen, for joining today and being my guest.
No problem.
Awesome. Okay, let's start with a quick introduction, who you are, what kind of experience you have, and we will go from there.
So my name's Stephen Cook. I'm the owner of Strategic IT Services. So we're a managed IT provider based out of the US. We do everything from cybersecurity to backups and disaster recovery, tech support, all that kind of stuff. We support everywhere from small businesses with one or two employees all the way up to larger corporations in the financial industry, aerospace industry with, over 1,000 employees.
Perfect. Okay, this sounds very exciting. So the other question, and that's I think from where we will start our main discussion, is what is your opinion about digital transformation?
So I think it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I think some companies will kind of fight it, and that'll continue to happen a little bit, but it's just one of those things where it's at this time, everything's so interconnected that those who don't do it are going to be left behind.
Okay, very well said. Well, you are speaking about basically like, I think it's more about the time when it's, as you said, it's necessary to have the digital transformation. But do you think that every company needs it, or it's more for companies that have a lot of manual work? How you think about that?
So the way we do it for our customers, for example, is we kind of tailor it to the type of customer. So we have customers that own embroidery businesses, or we have customers that are in aerospace or healthcare, and so they have different needs. So for example, some of our larger corporations, a big point is they're paying for licensing and stuff over the years that we have helped them get out of. For example, if a large company has a lot of old switches, old infrastructure, um, and they might be consistently paying yearly licensing and stuff,
Yeah.
if they modernize a little bit, then they actually could pay less in licensing costs than they would, and it's most of the time it's about 30 to 40%.
Yeah.
And so some companies it's more workflow related. A lot of times the C-suite executives and stuff are having to make reports for shareholders and all this kind of stuff, on a weekly basis. And if you can automate that, you can get those hours back. And so they can spend that time growing their business as opposed to doing kind of the more menial, repetitive work.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it comes to marketing. A lot of companies are still, oh, come in and see us kind of places where if they, in addition to that, if they go and do more digital marketing, whether that's SEO through their website
Yeah.
or whether through a marketing agency or something like that, it can exponentially increase traffic to that.
Agree. So many good points. So you mentioned specifically about the percentage of the cost that can be saved. So you said 30 to 40%, right? But a lot of people think that generally digital transformation in the company can be very pricey as well. So what is your opinion? Is it about being ready to pay for digital transformation so you can later have those savings, or it's about just, I don't know, go with the way that you are working and still waste the money on manual work?
So a lot of companies only look at the initial price tag and
Yeah.
they're like, oh man, that's, $20,000, $200,000,
Yes.
depending on the company. But what they don't take into effect is the residual stuff that they're already paying. Like I mentioned before,
Right.
it could be licensing. It could be marketing costs. Maybe they're paying more marketing costs than what they're actually getting out of it because if they don't target their stuff properly. And I see this all the time where um, it makes more sense for like a clothing line or
Mm-hmm.
somewhere more in that kind of space to market more towards like TikTok and
Yeah.
Facebook and the Instagram and that kind of stuff. But I'll
Mm-hmm.
see kind of large companies, spending thousands and tens of thousands of marketing dollars to that when it doesn't really match their customer base.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at what the business is trying to do, where you should market to get the most bang
Mm-hmm.
for your buck. And that's a big part of digital transformation is that, a lot of companies, they started up and then they kind of went from there. And a lot of the times, they changed stuff as time went on, but
Yeah.
it's just not properly set up to optimize.
Yes, agree. And with the price, I think we are also coming to another topic that is about the experience of people with whom you are collaborating or cooperating or working with to do the digital transformation, right? There are a lot of services, a lot of companies that actually are providing this service, so specifically helping with digital transformation based on their experience, etc. So do you think it's about having several people, like, well, a lot of people that will help with that work, or it's more about the experience that those people have, like have less people though being more experienced, or the amount of people that will help with that?
So something I tell my clients is that you want to have at least one or two people in each department that
Mm-hmm.
are extremely high level.
Mm-hmm.
In technology, for example, we have something called solutions architects,
Yeah.
right? They're the ones that can implement something from top to bottom, know how it works, all that kind of stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
under them, you can have more junior employees, where they'll do the basic stuff, and then over the years, you can
Yes.
train them up to get higher level, and then
Mm-hmm.
they can take on more tasks. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the way I recommend most companies be structured,
Mm-hmm.
because no, you don't necessarily need 100 employees that are at that extremely high
Yes.
level.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of need a mix.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it depends on sector that they're in and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you don't need a bunch of extremely like overqualified
Yeah.
people, but having people that know it from top to bottom that can help train
Mm-hmm.
up people and be more of a senior employee to those others is a really good idea.
Yes, agree. Well, that's a great, actually, generally, like a suggestion. And the point about still having people that understand the process and they are able to teach those that are in their departments. So, another thing, in my opinion, is important for digital transformation, and that's the communication. Do you think it's crucial to have that good communication, or it's still about having like latest tech tools that will help with the work?
So it's kind of a mix.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the right technology to where it makes everyone's lives easier,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's the platform that you use specific to your business, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's a good CRM solution to interact with your customers, do your social media, all that kind of stuff. I see it all the time where companies will kind of like when they're first starting or when they've been around for a while, they'll go and just Google, hey, the best CRM solution,
Yeah.
and they'll find like the really, common ones for
Mm-hmm.
enterprise, ServiceNow or Salesforce or something like that. But 99% of the time, that is 10 times as expensive and it's 100
Yeah.
times more feature rich than they're ever going to use.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to tailor it to the size of the company and what they're actually going to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I wanted, yes, I could pitch, for example, Salesforce or
Yeah.
ServiceNow to companies, but like I said, it's going to have 100 functionalities that they'll never use, and so they're going to pay
Mm-hmm.
for that.
Agree.
And so I would much rather size it to the company. And
Yeah.
so they can use those extra dollars on maybe solidifying their IT infrastructure or use it in
Mm-hmm.
marketing dollars to grow their business. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it really depends, but that's why you really have to have at least a few people that really know what they're talking about or partner with,
Yeah.
either a managed service company or a business consultant or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, that they can help you choose and vet out those things.
Agreed. Yeah, I think recently one of the trends is also to look for AI-based tools that will help. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is AI helping when deciding to start digital transformation, or it's more disturbing?
It can.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool, right? It's like anything else, it's good. I see a lot of people market, for example,
Mm-hmm.
with AI. And I mean, even us, right? We
Mm-hmm.
we do some stuff with marketing for AI,
Yeah.
but AI is not at the point where it can replace things yet.
Yes.
Everyone that's not familiar with AI in depth,
Mm-hmm.
thinks it's kind of like Skynet and this kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. And I mean, you're lucky if you can use Chat GPT to make a picture. So it's not
Yeah.
near as advanced as people are thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most of the more advanced stuff is not actually with what most people think of AI. It's so AI gets lumped in with something called machine learning
Yes.
and large language models as a general thing,
Yeah.
and people think that ChatGPT or the other AIs are the same thing, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
totally different kind of skill set.
Yes.
So one of the things we see very, very commonly is people will market completely with AI, thinking they don't have to pay their marketers anymore.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what happens is I will see a social media post or an email or something, and within 5 seconds I can be like, that's written by
Exactly.
ChatGPT.
Yes.
It's super,
Yes.
super easy. It does not sound like it's coming from a human.
Nothing personalized.
Yeah, and depending, especially like in the US, depending on the locale of the
Mm-hmm.
company, some businesses and some people are, oh, that's written by AI, I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
So, especially like a generational thing
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So you really got to be careful. You have to know who your
Yeah.
customer base is, what they want, all that kind of stuff, and kind of tailor your
Mm-hmm.
strategies to that.
Agree. Agree. And we spoke about technologies. Are there any technical or like any tools coming to your mind when we are saying digital transformation that are supporting us?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, digital transformation is kind of a large swath of things.
Yeah.
So like on the marketing side, they have some pretty good AI tools out there
Mm-hmm.
for more simple stuff. For example, there's one AI tool called InVideo. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you've used it
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Yeah.
That basically you can give it a prompt just like you would
Mm-hmm.
any AI, and it will make a video using stock images from its
Yes.
database, and it
Yeah.
can make more shorter form
Mm-hmm.
things that's good for marketing and stuff. And so,
Agree.
for marketing, there's that. And there's a lot of like, if you use a CRM, most CRMs have chatbots and stuff that you can
Yeah.
program. So, if someone goes to your website, they can chat and, what are our business hours? Like commonly asked things.
Yeah.
Um,
The
and
basic
those are
ones.
good. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
huge fan of the full AI chatbots, especially when someone goes to
Yeah.
your website, because most of the time they don't work very well
Mm-hmm.
and it ends up frustrating your customers and as
Yes.
opposed to doing better for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more of a fan of, get the information using AI and get it to a
Mm-hmm.
real person. And then you can kind of go from there until the
Yeah.
technology is a little more mature.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it
Agree.
just totally, it kind of depends on the customer.
Yeah, so there is one tool, I will not mention the name, but for a long time they didn't have any support like a chatbot, anything that I will easily connect with support. And recently I was surprised to see that they finally have the support category generally. So I was like, yes, finally I can give my question. And as soon as I gave it, it started to reply to me like with answering to me, and I was like, okay, better not having it at all rather than having this in this way. So it's like not helping me anyhow, and I still need the person to help me with the stuff. So agree, not always AI is helping there.
Well, and I compare it to like when you call into somewhere to pay a bill or something
Hmm.
and you hit that automated system. What
Yeah.
what is the thing that 99% of people do? Instead of going through their prompts and doing everything, they just type
Hmm.
representative. They just do
Exactly.
everything they can
Yes.
to get to a
Yeah.
person. And it's the same
Agree.
way with AI. Until you can get AI to be useful where people want to use it,
Yeah.
otherwise, until then it's more obstructing, your
Mm-hmm.
leads and your business than it's actually helping.
Agree, agree. And you mentioned about the experience on digital transformation. So I think it will be a great question to give you about how you are identifying the areas or like the process that can be digitalized when you are like helping other companies with it.
So you need to evaluate the business from
Mm-hmm.
kind of all segments. So, like when I go into a company, I don't just look at their IT infrastructure, I also look at their business processes,
Mm-hmm.
how they're structured, from the personnel level, all that kind of stuff. Because, I mean, I go into large companies all the time, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of times they have more managers than they do
Yeah,
employees.
exactly.
And so it's
Very
very,
common
very
issue.
bureaucratic.
Yeah.
Sometimes, depending on how large the organization, sometimes that's even necessary,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of managers wear multiple hats.
Right.
For example, you could have a manager that is an operational manager as well
Mm-hmm.
as an HR manager.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not only having to run a business segment of the business, but they're also having
Mm-hmm.
to do HR, do one-on-ones with the employees, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they have to do a lot of things. But in general, I find that the larger a company gets, the more managers there are. And a lot of the time it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of wasted
Mm-hmm.
because it ends up more being about the bureaucratic nature of the business rather
Yeah.
than providing benefits to your client.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of it depends, but in general, a lot of the time is wasted on people and processes. A
Yeah.
lot of time it's not necessarily technical, it's actually a process or a people issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agree. And related to digital transformation, are there any major challenges that are very common for you to see in the companies that are deciding to have the digital transformation?
Sure. The biggest thing is you need to have approval from the top down. If everyone from the top down does not believe in your vision, it
Mm-hmm.
won't be successful, no
Mm-hmm.
matter how hard you push it, how much money you spend.
Yeah.
So, for example, something we run into all the time is that IT in general is mostly viewed as only a cost center.
Mm-hmm.
So they just say, oh man, this costs us, doesn't really benefit us. And so you need to find ways to show your customer that not only are you paying for, prevent cybersecurity attacks
Mm-hmm.
and all that kind of thing, but you need to show them the value of your service. And we
Yeah.
see this every day. They'll view you
Agree.
only as a cost center, and you will never have a successful transformation while that is the view of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you need, whether it's innovation, whether it's awareness training, there's lots of different ways you can do it. But yeah, you have to have support from the top down, otherwise it'll never work.
Yes, agree, agree. And looking back, are there any specific processes that you are taking, like for the digitalization or automation of some specific areas? I mean, when you are starting the collaboration, are there any specific parts of the company that you're starting with, or it's just generally having a kickoff meeting and going from there?
Yeah, so it's kind of tailored a little
Mm-hmm.
bit depending on the size of the company.
Mm-hmm.
For small companies, we can tend to just jump in, look at people, processes, technical, all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the larger the company is, the more of a structured approach you need to
Yeah.
take, because otherwise it can be very kind of spider webbed out.
Yes.
So it kind of is custom tailored
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to a
I see.
certain extent. But yeah, the basics are technology, people, and processes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are
Mm-hmm.
really the main structures that you have to look at, because a lot of the times, even just from a purely financial
Mm-hmm.
perspective, there's, over the years you just end up duplicating things.
Right.
And a lot of the times these companies, like, they don't realize that it's not as expensive as kind of they've heard or expect
Mm-hmm.
to implement a lot of take cybersecurity, for example, right? If a company doesn't have any kind of cybersecurity measures, which is very
Yeah.
common with small and medium-sized businesses,
Mm-hmm.
it's super easy show them how to implement better password policies,
Yeah.
you know, to do something like that, two-factor, multi-factor authentication,
Mm-hmm.
awareness training, that stuff can be fairly low or even free to do
Yeah.
for a company, just depending on the situation. So it doesn't cost the company a lot, and it can give them a baseline of protection.
Mm-hmm. Agree. We recently, in my company, we got the ISO 27001 certificate. And when you are
Mhm,
speaking about these points, I'm like, I remember them from that. I think a
mhm.
lot of companies just need to concentrate on that kind of stuff, even if they think that it's just a certificate. But in my opinion, it's a knowledge that you're giving to your employees as well. The two-phase authentication, the security of locking the screen when you are going, not like if you are not in front of it, and how you are using data. Even when we are going back to what we mentioned about AI and GPT and all those tools, I think the usage of data is so important to understand what level of data you are pasting there, because a lot of people think that it's safe to share the information, but let's just remember that it's based on the data that you are giving and it's actually keeping the data. So, and not always it's a great idea to actually share that kind of information to open source like GPT and all those other tools, right?
Absolutely. And realistically, it's not that time consuming or difficult. You can
Mm-hmm.
actually set up your own generative AIs inside of your business. So if you want
Mm-hmm.
to use something similar to Chat GPT, and it helps you with various different things, and lots of
Yeah.
them, it'll be really useful for you, then you can set up your own instance of Chat GPT internal to
Mm-hmm.
your company. So it's not giving all that data out, to the general Chat GPT. So
Yes.
there's lots of different stuff you can do, but you're absolutely right. Those compliance mechanisms are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not every company needs to be fully compliant to every
Yeah.
possible cert. That's just not necessary. But there
Mm-hmm.
are certain baselines that, no matter the sector, it is really, really useful. ISO 27001 is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
PCI compliance is another.
Yeah.
Because basically every company out there, to a certain extent, they do credit card transactions.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
deal with credit card transactions, you have to be PCI DSS compliant.
Yes. Agree.
And, we work in the healthcare sector as well. And
Mm-hmm.
even if they work in the healthcare sector, they don't realize what HIPAA fines can do to a company,
Yes.
especially a smaller company,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because HIPAA fines, for example, are per patient record accessed.
Yeah.
So if you have a computer that's not compliant and you get fined because of that, they will audit you and find out how many patient records you did you interact with on this,
Yeah.
and you will get a fine for every single one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
people will see, maybe it's a $25 fine if it's something
Mm-hmm.
simple, which isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But if you've went and you've interacted with 100,000 patient records over,
Mm-hmm.
3 years or something, then 25,000,
It's already a
that
lot.
could be a much bigger deal.
Agree.
So yeah, absolutely. There's some ones that are absolutely on good baselines
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of different places can use, and then stuff like GDPR and stuff like
Yeah.
that, depending on who your customer base is. If you have customers, or your customers have customers
Yeah.
in the EU, for example, then that may be a bigger deal for your business.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, I think this will be my last question to you, and it's about the advice that you would offer to other companies that want to go to digital transformation.
Sure. So I would say, don't be afraid to get evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
There's no harm in evaluation, and a lot of the times it's not a real heavy cost to just get evaluated. And if it can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it can only take a little time,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely worth it, no matter the sector that you're in. A
Yeah.
lot of companies think, I'm too small for this to affect me.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, when it comes to cybersecurity, for example, over 60% of small businesses, so over 60% of the cyber attacks
Mm-hmm.
happen to people
To
with
the
less
small.
than 50
Yeah.
employees.
Agree.
So there is no more, I'm too small for this to happen. And most of the big companies that are getting hacked is because
Mhm.
they don't actually hack the big companies. They'll hack a small partner of the
Mhm.
company and
Mhm.
then get access that way.
Yes, agree.
So the days where you could not afford to protect yourself are long gone.
Mhm.
So at this point, it's you got to weigh the risk to reward ratio. And unfortunately, right now, as many companies as are not prioritizing it, the risk is
Mhm.
a lot higher.
Yes, agree. And I think generally, like with the small companies, digital transformation is even easier to be handled, just because, again, amount of people that need to be communicated, involved, etc. So with these kind of companies, it's easier to start the digital transformation rather with big
Absolutely.
companies, as you mentioned, with having a lot of managers and all that bureaucracy there, it will move slower than with the small ones. And even the cost, I
Absolutely.
think, will be cheaper than for the big ones.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much. Any last words before we'll end this episode?
Nope, that's it. I look forward to seeing the transformation that comes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being the guest and have a great day.
You too.